Dead Space, ladies and gentlemen. Arguably, from my point of view, so this is an opinion, but I would say it's probably one of the greatest, video gaming horror franchises out there. Quite literally, it was released to critical acclaim when the first game came out, and we have a certain ASIM at the moment. At the top of the genre that is collecting its licenses. It's getting everybody together in one big party. And my question is, ladies and gentlemen, why is Dead Space still not in this game? I have a hypothetical answer to this question that I'll get into, later in the video. But I'm going to also provide the thoughts on what I would believe would be the eventual Dead Space chapter, because I do believe it might be inevitable, but as I say, when we get to the reason as to why it's not in the game yet, it might not be inevitable, it might not actually come. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go through the content first, how I would do this. We've got some wonderful Gabriel Soma gameplay in the background, because the skin you are currently seeing on the screen is a direct nod to Dead Space 3. As far as I'm concerned, it is anyway. So there's subtle hints there. Gabriel was also released with the Singularity, and he is, in his lore, an engineer in a space setting. So obviously, sprinkle a bit of copium in there, and, you can come to a conclusion there that it's a bit of a hint, at least the way I've taken it anyway. But anyway, how would I do this chapter? Me personally, I'm not a game developer. I don't provide ideas for games. But, ladies and gentlemen, it is one of the reasons I did want to talk about it, actually, because I don't believe choosing a necromorph or the map or the survivor is any challenge whatsoever. There is a very standout, obvious candidate for every role for this chapter. So we'll start with the killer. If you haven't seen the Dead Space franchise, I'm not going to go into it too much because I haven't actually played the games, although it is actually one of my favourite horror franchises because I've observed it from the outside in. I just love the concept and the setting of it, and it fucking just enthralled me. How just grim and awful it actually is in a good way. So the killer is the Hunter Necromorph. I do believe this is very obvious, a very obvious choice. The Hunter Necromorph was one of the most prominent ones, I believe, anyway. It had more of a character, should we say, than the regular slashers and all that kind of thing, the regular, fodder, as we'll say. The Hunter Necromorph was created by Dr. Chalice Mercer. I'm going to incorporate him into this idea as well because I absolutely loved what they did with him in the remake. He was so well voice acted and well made in the remake. I fell in love with him whenever he was on screen. Because as I say, I watched other people play through the game. I've not actually played the games myself, but so the Hunter, if you are unaware, is a necromorph that can actually regenerate, and the usual way that you kill necromorphs in this franchise is by shooting off all the limbs. But with this one particular necromorph, because he was obviously engineered by Mercer, he has removed the weakness, so to speak. So when you blow off its limbs, it'll squirm around on the floor for a bit and then they'll all grow back. I'm not going to say from an actual gameplay standpoint in terms of Dead by Daylight how this would work, because obviously turning the game into an FPS for survivors and also having a major and impeding stun lock mechanic in terms of slowing the hunter down and that kind of thing, the way it works in Dead Space itself wouldn't translate very well into a Dead by Daylight setting. It would make it pretty fucking infuriating to play as the hunter himself. So I don't actually know what they do in terms of his power and all that kind of thing. I just know based on the character they would probably go for the hunter as a necromorph. The survivor, that's just very obvious, Isaac Clarke. There's nobody else really. I mean, you could have legendary skins for maybe Hammond, Ellie, Nicole, maybe. I don't know. Because Nicole she's a ghost through most of it. But yeah, I probably missed out some of the characters there, but as I say, I've not played the whole game, I've only observed it. But Isaac is very obviously the thing, and this man is in literally every game that has ever done a collab so far, so I don't know why he's not in Dead by Daylight yet. as I say, horror franchise. But yeah, very obvious candidate is Isaac Clarke. The map is obviously the Ishimura. If they are going to go with, if they were to go with the Hunter as the Necromorph, they'd probably have to do the Med Lab as the portion of the Ishimura that the map takes place in, because that's where you usually fight, or where you did fight the Hunter. Getting on to what I spoke about with Mercer, I had this little quirky idea. Now, I know Behaviour have made a lot of money off Dead by Daylight, so this isn't really much of a stretch, but it is a fantasy thing I'm going to mention. They could actually hire Mercer's remake voice actor and have, whenever there's, you know, somebody's playing as the Hunter in the game and it's the Hunter is the killer, they could have Mercer commentating on a megaphone, you know, as with what, you know, the killer player's doing when they're killing them and all that kind of thing, and they're hitting them and they're getting stunned by things. You could have him saying lines, you know, commentating basically on what's going on, because that's what he does kind of in the remake. It's over like a megaphone. It doesn't have to contextually make sense. It can still be a megaphone in outdoor maps and all that kind of thing. You know, it's just there for a bit of flavour. Because he was really entertaining in the remake. I found him really entertaining anyway. Legendaries for the Hunter. You could do the Ubermorph, which was apparently an alien. Or it was a young hive mind, I believe. A young version of that. Like it wasn't originally human. It's just the same shape. And there was also, I think there was a regenerator. It was called the Regenerator, which was like a lesser version of the Hunter, I think. Again, I don't know. But there's room for legendary skins anyway. You can even just do like a slasher skin, you know, a regular one. They're all similar shaped. So now I'm going to explain, or well, I'm just going to provide. I'm going to put a video of it on screen for you, because I do genuinely believe, ladies and gentlemen, based on the Mories we have had and the topic of this game, okay, you'll have noticed probably if you've played Dead by Daylight for a while, it is a horror game, but it doesn't actually have any strict gore in it. Now, for this particular killer, and you know, if you've seen Dead Space or you've played Dead Space, you'll know that half of the gameplay for this game is worrying how absolutely brutally and grotesquely this thing is going to kill you if it gets hold of you. So I'm going to put a video on screen, and I'm going to preface it by saying this is the reason why I believe this chapter, theoretically, and Dead Space as a whole is not in the game yet, because I believe, based on age restrictions and all that kind of thing, and accessibility to a broader audience and things like that, I think genuinely that Behaviour are scared of this. Bonus points for this. Gore, ladies and gentlemen. As I've just said before them clips, it's kind of necessary and probably a demand with this particular killer that you need to have a brutal Mori for these characters, for the Necromorphs, I should say, because it is part of their identifying traits in a way. They do very gruesomely kill you in the game, and you know, if you're going to do a Mori for a character in, you know, Dead by Daylight, they're going to have to be able to do stuff like that to survivors. I don't know if there's a licensing issue in that regard, with, you know, licensed survivors being in the game. I don't know. I should imagine though, if they're going to add licensed survivors to the game, they would sign an agreement, the IP holders, that they are fine with all, you know, present and future killers killing their character, because otherwise, why is it in the game, you know? And it does cut off a lot of other options in the future if that's not the case. You know, they can't do dismemberment or things like that, you know. But yeah, I do genuinely think they are scared of doing that, we'll dip our toes a little bit into DVD critique here, because I do think the animation quality in this game is very bad overall. Killers do slide along the floor and all that kind of thing, so I don't know if it's a complexity issue with doing, gore-based Mories and all the sort of flailing that'll go on with things. But yeah, I do think it is that. I can't speak, from a business standpoint on how hard EA might be to work with, because, Visceral Games casually dropped the greatest horror gaming franchise ever, like, as far as I'm concerned anyway. And to a lot of other people as well, actually, I won't just include me as evidence there. There's a lot of people who love this game, Dead Space. EA just decided to eat the fucking company for no reason, and, it took us about 10 years to get anything new Dead Space after that, which was the remake a couple of years ago. I think it was 2 years ago now. So it's a bit of an open discussion, if this video reaches anybody, I'd say. But yeah, it's an IP that I've wanted for a while. But yeah, there you go. I just thought I'd put a video out there because it's something that has been weighing on my mind. It's like, why isn't Dead Space in Dead by Daylight? Especially when we had Gabriel Soma, who is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm taking him as a nod towards Isaac Clarke, because he's very similar in the way that that he's, even his respective killer, I suppose, the Singularity has that goopy kind of thing all over him, which is kind of like fleshy and all that kind of shit. It's like he's a necromorph robot in a way, because he is like possessed and he's a bit of Uncle Junk, but brought back to life by this alien parasite, which is kind of the same thing here. It's dead people that have been repurposed into living weapons, basically, by this alien parasite. And that was part of why it was so good, the horror aspect of Dead Space, because you can still, even as like grotesquely mutated these people get when the corpses are basically stolen and taken as like vessels for this parasite, you can still see through the faces are still kind of unchanged for the most part, and you can still sort of see the person they once were, but they're all covered in like sharp bones and snarling and all that kind of shit. It's really creepy. But yeah, as I say, there you go. I'm just going to leave it up in the air, fellas. I'm just going to leave it out there. I do believe it is a gore issue, which is why this license hasn't been put in the game yet. Could be the license in March, who knows? Although, no, it won't be, actually, anyway, because it's only a killer, that one. Everybody seems to think it's Jason, so won't put words in anybody's mouth, but, yeah. It's just weird because, Dead by Daylight's a horror game, and Dead Space is a horror game, yet Dead Space has had crossovers in fucking Fortnite, for example, using that as an extreme example, a kid's game. But it's not in Dead by Daylight, a horror game, or a game trying to be a horror game, But just to briefly loop back and touch on the critique I spoke about earlier, because I do like to just mention this. It does worry me a little bit, because with a killer like a necromorph, it does demand quite a high level of animation quality as well, and this came from what I've seen, the animation quality, at least in game, because they can make good Mories, they can make good lobby animations, but my god, they cannot animate killer walk animations to save their fucking lives, fellas. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've ever played Survivor against an unknown or against Skull Merchant. They just literally slide along the floor, mate, and it's not a good look. So it does worry me in that regard as well, that if they were to make a Dead Space chapter, how badly animated the necromorph would be. But again, not to piss on the bonfire, it's on my wish list, ladies and gentlemen. I will just say that, I've just thrown it out there, see if anybody feels the same way, honestly. It does seem like it's it's late as far as I'm concerned. I did think it'd be one of the first they'd actually go for, to be honest, with the licensing. Obviously the movie ones like Freddy and Michael Myers and all that kind of stuff, that's obviously probably going to be the first in the pipeline, but in terms of video games, FNAF's come before Dead Space, and obviously these days FNAF would be more popular than Dead Space, but Dead Space is, for its time, it was groundbreaking, I think, in terms of what it was and how fucking scary it was when it first came out. And it still is like a scary game. But yeah, we're waffling now anyway because I get into these passion talks / rants here and there. I'll just keep looping if I don't shut myself up. So yeah, gonna throw it out there. There you go. Let me know what you think. You know, comment, like, subscribe, as they all say. You know, on this platform. But yeah, just curious, you know, to see if anybody else is thinking the same way. To be honest, but there you go. See you on the next one.